Welcome back to another exciting trip around the crypto canniverse. Today, we are going to be talking about cannabis M&A, hemp vitamin water, and touching on cannabis travel and hospitality. We will also be discussing the pitfalls of physician alternative investing, and we'll hear a bad joke from the bad joke accountant. Alan is the co-founder of the Crypto Canniverse Show and a God-fearing man, and he has the superpower of connecting people. Welcome, Alan. How's it going?
I'm doing great. How are you, Crystal? Thank you for that introduction.
Good, good. You're
Connecting people,
welcome.
connecting to people, connecting to the spiritual world or
Well,
God.
you are wonderful about connecting people to the spiritual world, which is one of my favorite attributes with you. But you are also wonderful about connecting people to, investors, advisors, and partnerships as well. But with that being said, Alan, what Bible verse do you have for us today?
Yes, today's Bible verse comes from Matthew 5:16. Here's the text. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Here's some of the key points of Matthew 5:16. Um, Jesus has described his disciples as first the salt of the earth and then as the light of the world. Light is meant to be seen by those in the darkness. It has no value. It covers up and covered up and hidden. This verse provides the practical application of Jesus' teaching about being the light of the world. Disciples display the light of Jesus by doing the good works which God intends for them. Even if acting in a Christ-like way earns persecution from the world, believers are meant to shine that light into a dark world. Good works done for God's sake in ways that bring glory to God ought to be done so that they can be seen. The light of Christian goodness is meant to shine out so that God will be glorified. However, in situations where the world is likely to merely praise the Christian, it's better for the act to be done in secret to avoid arrogance and pride.
Amen. That's like, the Bible verse that says, go pray and talk about your good deeds in secret, and things like that. So I love that Bible verse. I also think that, it's important. It kind of brings to the point the necessity of, when you shine light into darkness about, inviting all faiths. That's why you and I agreed in the beginning that we invite all faiths, all people onto the show. And we just lead with love and light and not necessarily religious beliefs.
Amen.
Amen. So thank you so much for being here. Before we get started, I want to talk about the recent current event of the DEA agreeing to reschedule marijuana panel. What are your thoughts on that?
Progress and still a lot of work to be done. It raises a lot of questions. I think there's been, from the CPA side, from a regulatory, from a compliance, from a tax perspective, there's a lot of questions. Obviously, 280E is a big deal, and that's, again, from our particular seat here, not getting into some of the, the social justice aspects to it, but how and when would that take effect, and where are we getting into with the devil we don't know? And that's going to be a very interesting thing, because there's already been some, tax court cases, litigation around, is this going to be prospective? Can we go back in time basically and recoup some of the taxes that, under new rules would have been unfairly clawed from cannabis entities? So there's a lot to unpack here, but it's interesting and man, definitely gives us something to talk about.
I'll chime in on that, and I agree with what Zach said, and obviously the 280 and the tax standpoint is going to be pretty impactful overall. It's going to impact a lot of people. Just from my perspective as a healthcare corporate M&A attorney, it's going to impact healthcare entirely. How pharmacies are run, what products are not going to be in there or are going to be in there. I think it's going to open up some investment opportunities that historically may have, been ignored by certain institutional investors. I think it's going to shape some policy development that hasn't really been considered in the past. So that's, and then, I think there's two schools of thought. I think on one hand, we see this as progress, and it is progress. Is there more progress that should be that we should aim for? Absolutely. And there's another school of thought that says, okay, well, this could actually hinder full legalization because of these reasons. And I won't go into the details of it. So I think it's important for the audience to know that there are two different conflicting schools of thoughts about the effects of rescheduling from a 1 to a 3 and how it has an impact on the overall ecosystem and industry, and that being cannabis.
And that's not even getting into the states' rights versus federal issues that can crop up there as well. And there might be one or two of those.
Thank you. Thank you. I agree with you guys. There's going to be pros and cons to everything. I wonder if this is a political ploy. It seems like every time election
No,
comes
that
around,
doesn't happen. Come on, stop. Come on.
that they're throwing this out there and getting us all to latch on and promote them and whatnot, and then things fall through. So I hope that that's not the case, but we shall see. We shall see. So the Crypto Canniverse is putting together an international pitch contest for females building their own projects on blockchain-related companies. Our first sponsor is BlockSafe, which has agreed to give the winner a $20,000 development grant. If you would like to sponsor women founders, please reach out to Crystal Wampler or Alan Lau on LinkedIn or at info@cryptocanniverse.com. I am excited to welcome back our guest co-host, Zachary Gordan. Zachary is not only a brilliant CPA, but he is a founder's best friend. He's not only on the top or in the list of 40 under 40, but he's also helped raise over 100 million for startups. He's my go-to CPA for cannabis, crypto, and tech. Welcome, Zach.
Thanks so much. Thanks for the kind words. I'm glad to be back.
Thank you for coming back. Now, we know that you are the host or the creator of the Bad Joke Accountant. Can you tell us about that and how you came about and why you came about creating that? And then we would love to hear a bad joke.
Of last year, during peak, well, actually early in tax season, just a few CPA friends of mine, it was hitting a little early, and they're starting to get a little down. So, I may have one or two dad jokes chambered at all times. So I just started, every couple of days blasting them out just to get a stupid laugh, just to ease the mood a little bit. And then I started sharing it on social media on Friday afternoons, and it just started to become a regular habit. And then the impressions started to hit, and then it just started to carry from there. So people asked to make a couple T-shirts, a couple hats, or the stuff like that, and it just sort of took off from there. Now it's on one hand it's routine, but on the other hand it's fun and interesting. It's a good excuse to push things like ChatGPT. So I made the bad joke GPT, just silly things like that. So yeah, it's one of those fun things that just sort of came about organically. And on the more serious side, it allows for an opportunity to talk about mental health, especially amongst CPAs and other professionals, which is not always something that's paid attention to enough. And it's led to some good conversations about something as simple as the morning routine can obviously transition to something more more intense, more serious, and widespread. So from that end, it's a good form to start off as something silly and stupid and bad, joke wise anyway. But at its heart, it's something obviously very serious and something that should be talked about quite a bit more. And then I can't let you guys down. So why are accountants always so tired after work?
Why? Why?
Why?
Because their jobs are so taxing.
I like it.
That's
I
a good
do
one.
it. I
Hey,
do
you know what?
too.
I'm a sucker for like really bad
Me
jokes.
too. Me too. That's a good one.
Oh, and they only get so much worse. Literally, I will spend free time. We have a database of terrible jokes, so we're not running out anytime soon.
That's awesome. I love the passion and purpose behind the bad joke. It's really important to talk about mental health. And so I applaud you for that. Thank you so much. And it's actually really taking off on, platforms like LinkedIn, et cetera. A lot of people are really getting into your jokes and commenting. So congratulations on that. That's amazing.
Thank
Tell
you.
us a little bit about your welcome. So I know, and some of us on here know that you've recently created and went out on your own and created Red 5. Can you tell us a little bit about Red 5 and why did you go out on your own?
Great question. So yeah, Red 5, for anyone who doesn't know, that's a deep cut from Star Wars. So Disney, I hope you're not watching. Or you are, let's hope. But so simply put, we're CPA advisors. We have a focus on crypto, cannabis. Obviously makes a lot of sense while we're here. VC-backed tech, and just some interesting and innovative emerging companies, industries, et cetera. And it sounds a little cliche, but we really want to be on the cutting edge of these different industries. So it's something that is fun. It's a passion of ours. And if we can help, and I know you mentioned at the jump, being leaders and bringing back the term trusted advisor. That's something that, again, is really important for us. We want to be there. So it's not just a matter of debits and credits of taxes, which obviously we do all those things, but making actual tactical decisions and being at the table. So whether it's diving into the data and coming up with the right analytics and coming up with the right dashboard so that you can make data-driven decisions, whether it's going through vendors, going through getting ready for an audit, whatever that might look like, we want to be there and we want to help, especially in these, I don't want to say newer because a lot of these industries have been around, but these ever evolving and exciting industries. And, I've been a former tech founder myself. I've gone through the ring, and it just seemed like the right time, the right moment to make the jump. I think accounting as an industry is ripe for, I hate to use the term, but disruption, and being able to be that sort of agent of change and be able to push forward was just an opportunity that was very difficult to pass up. So it's been very exciting from that front, as exciting as accounting can be anyway.
That's wonderful. You touched base on cutting technology. What kind of technology are you implementing or using in your firm for yourself or for your clients?
Well, staying away from data entry is first and foremost. And I think certain parts of the industry have been slow to adopt those types of processes. So any chance we get to make sure that all the various systems we use, whether for tax prep, whether for, most clients use QuickBooks as their general ledger software, as their accounting software. It controls 70% of the market, give or take. So just being able to use that as a baseline for the accounting and making sure that everything integrates together properly, transfer of data is done seamlessly so that you don't have someone doing that sort of redundant work. This is going to sound silly, but trying to move away from the thought of billable hours and moving more towards tasks, because from a relationship, from that intangible standpoint, I know that's not quite the question, but just it's all related.
It is.
I would never want a client, a relationship, to have to think about, having any hesitation about calling, emailing, texting, whatever it might be. That's a concern, and I don't like running into those types of issues, especially when trying to build a relationship. So moving more towards a focus of value, of completing tasks, of actually getting to deliverables. That's what's most important, and everything that we do is built around that sort of central mission.
I have to agree with you 100%. Becoming that advisor, not, dinging people, for every single minute. It helps you stay ahead of what the company is doing and staying in front of the company. And it actually probably brings you more revenue because you see ways that you can help them and will not just bring you more revenue, but also the companies as well.
That's exactly right. So if it's long term, if it's a win-win, then I think everybody should be happy.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So do you teach this kind of stuff? I know that you're the chair of the Digital Asset Committee for the New York State Society of CPAs. Are these some of the things that you guys discuss?
Oh, it sure is. So not only are we nerding out on the latest protocol that's making waves, or talking about what sort of shenanigans the SEC is up to, but yeah, it goes much deeper than that. We want to talk about how we can learn and help from each other. So we'll typically do a CPE session every month. It's always open invitation. So I'm sure if someone's not a member of the State Society of CPAs for New York, we can always let you in if you're curious, if you want to see how we typically go through things. So everybody's certainly welcome. You don't have to have any crypto clients, any experience with the blockchain, anything like that. But we want to have you on board. And if you're interested in participating, we're booked up for the next couple of sessions, but there's always ways to maneuver in. So yeah, feel free to reach out about that. It's a lot of fun, and we're very lucky given that we're New York based. We have some of the best and experienced professionals around. Not all necessarily based in New York, of course, but it's a great group, and it's always open for new members.
That's wonderful. That was going to be my follow-up question was, do you have to be in New York? Do you have to be a New York CPA? Well, live or reside within New York. So
no, certainly you don't have to be physically in New York. I mean, we even have people from New Jersey on board, but no, the big kicker is you
what
have to be a
about
member
Texas? Do you have anybody from Texas?
Texas.
I'm sure we have some manner of Texas representation.
I'm sure Richard could help out with that, being that he's from Texas.
There you go. I'm your Texas connection now, Zach.
I love it.
Hey, Richard, while I have you, really quick, I was kind of curious about your experience with mental health and it being in the industries of attorneys or, CPAs. What have you heard?
Just mental health in general?
Yeah.
It's funny you're asking me that. I actually just rolled off about a month and a half ago as the chair of the Peer Assistance Committee for the Dallas Bar Association. So for the last 3-4 years, I served on the committee for the Dallas Bar Association addressing substance abuse, addictions, and mental wellness for attorneys specifically because it's part of the bar. But of course, none of us are immune to potential threats with mental illness and substance abuse, any addiction issues that could plague our professions, our personal lives, etc. I think different organizations and different trade associations, or even just private companies that have more resources, I think they're being educated, and they're developing more awareness of the threats of let's just say alcohol addiction, that maybe 20-30 years ago it was really more part of our norm. But I think that depending on where you are, we are developing more awareness of it, because then the downstream effects of failing to address mental wellness and failing to address some of those other ailments, it comes out in your legal work or your CPA work or whatever profession that you're in, right? And ultimately, yeah, you suffer, but it's really your clients. It's really the people who are paying you for that professional service. They're the ones who are really suffering.
Well, and to take that one step further, it feeds into the pipeline issue that especially CPAs have. I mean, CPA enrollment's down 19%, and it's it's very difficult to find that, you know, at scale, that next generation is becoming more and more challenging. So it's something that is a big part to this as well.
And you know, it's interesting because you have like you know, with every profession, you have like different stages. You have the people who first get out of school and they're just starting the profession, that first 5 years, right? That's the growing years. Then you have like the mid-tier years, and then you kind of have like the twilight years of you're just kind of walking away. And in every single stage, they have they have different, they're coping with different life situations, right? And they're coping with like different life situations that could be a little bit different. So, you know, someone who's first coming in a profession, they may just, they value mentorship, they value different opportunities to grow and so forth, and they have that pressure of proving themselves. The later stages, they've already done all that, but they're more focused many times that I've seen with identity crisis, in the sense that they're losing somewhat of their identity because they've associated so much of their identity with being a CPA or a lawyer or engineer or whatever. And you know, if you think about it, we spend 8, 9, 10, sometimes more hours at work than sometimes when we're asleep. And so, you know, if you're spending that much time developing yourself and you're creating an identity of that's what I am or that's what I do, as you're getting into your 60s and 70s and you're starting to slow down, or maybe you're forced to step away, that's a, you know, that takes a hit on your mental psyche.
Oh, that's so well said. And it's so true. And I just recall coming into public accounting straight out of college, I think, to your point, and seeing some of those senior partners, some of those practitioners who've been around, and it's certainly not just CPAs and lawyers, but you know, you've been around too long, you've given your life to the profession, and you don't always come off as the happiest person. You know, there's there's certainly some feelings involved, and you know, it can be quite jarring as a young professional coming in, like, wow, what, you know, what happened? And you know, is that going to be me someday?
You know, I worked for this firm many years ago. It's probably been about a decade. It was a very well-known regional firm. It wasn't too big. It was about 70 attorneys, 6 offices across Texas. And it was a firm that had been around for 83 years. So for a long time, it started in the 30s. And you had a group of these like core, like maybe 11 attorneys. They were all like, you know, 69 and older. And the oldest one being around 91, 92. And
Wow.
it was really interesting watching them, how they function, because even the 90, you know, even the 80, 85, 90 year, they'll still come into work. But sometimes they come into work to work, but really you can tell they're coming into work for the camaraderie and to establish some type of a foundation in their mental awareness of, this is who I am. This is my comfort level. Yes, I can be at home doing chores at home, or else I can be here hanging out with my buddies, because you look at their billable hours, it's really bad, right?
Right.
So you can tell they're there just to be there.
You know, that actually brings me to Monique. I know that you are the co-founder of a cannabis tourism and travel platform, hospitality company. Do you, when developing this, did you take into account people's mental health?
Absolutely. You know, I think everybody's brought up such great points about how our identities are tied into our professions and how it can have such a negative impact on us. And it was one of the genesis for Rick and I to develop InnDica, was because we had reached the point in our careers where we felt like lost. We felt burnt out and not really sure of like, is this it, right? Is this all there is to my life? And so we sat down, we like took a little retreat. We went out to the desert. We did some sound bathing. We did some interesting experiences. And we came away from that with this like inspiration to kind of refocus ourselves and to find a way to share what we had experienced, but also to elevate the conversation around cannabis, and as it was becoming legal, kind of showcase how it could, if not, it's not great, you know, it's not for everyone, but it can help you a little bit to relax, to open your mind, to help you maybe address some of the stressors that you're dealing with in a way that is more productive than having a cocktail after work kind of thing. And also trying to showcase how you can incorporate it into a healthy lifestyle and into a mentally healthy lifestyle. So yeah, it was very impactful for us. And I think, you know, as professionals and professional organizations, they have to come up with ways to help their members confront these issues, not just become aware of them, but also confront them and deal with them, and maybe give them tools and suggestions and things that could maybe be more helpful in separating yourself, you know, separating a little bit of your identity from that profession that you're in.
I have to agree with you. You know, there is so much stigma against cannabis. And so, you know, and that it's a gateway drug to other drugs. But honestly, for me, you know, I was on I had fibromyalgia. I was on 15 different medications. You know, I was struggling mentally from all of these different medications, and I found cannabis, and cannabis got me off of all of those medications. You know, I got healthy. I lost a bunch of weight, which people are like, "Oh, you use cannabis, you gain a lot of weight." Well, not necessarily,
Not
because
necessarily.
now that there's so much research and different cultivars that are being created, you can actually find the one that best suits you. Now, do I use cannabis on a medicinal user? But there are people that struggle with, you know, mental issues or just different things that do need to use it on a daily basis. And quite frankly, if you're using it recreational, it's a lot healthier than, you know, drinking, going out and on a bender. What do you guys think about that, Richard and Zach?
Zach, you want to go first?
Oh, absolutely. I got muted somehow. Sorry about that. Oh, one every time. Thank you, Zoom. Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Now, you know, it's about finding the right rhythm, the right you know, fit for yourself. Because yeah, some people, you know, it helps balance them out every day. Sometimes it's you know, ad hoc. Sometimes it's somewhere in between. But yes, the sort of evolution, the amount of research that is now being done has really tipped the scales in, you know, in a whole new direction. And I think seeing some of the polling that's being done, where if I recall, I think it's over 90% now approve cannabis legalization at minimum for medicinal purposes. And I think for adult use, it's a little bit lower, but still trending, you know, hockey sticking up for all intents and purposes from a generation ago. So I think not only does the data support this transition, that some of the stigmas are starting to be disproven, but that from a practical perspective, there's research-backed means to find that balance, or find whatever the right answer is too. And I think to circle this back a little bit to the rescheduling, that also plays a big impact here, because now if this does become treated like another pharmaceutical, man, does that have serious consequences, both good and bad. So it's all very exciting. It's nice to have some, pardon the pun, substance here. But yeah, I think there's still a lot more work to be done.
So, you know, from my perspective, I mean, there's so many things to talk about here, because I'm looking at it from different perspectives of, you know, we had this, I mean, cannabis has had a long standing history of very colorful. Cannabis has a very colorful past. You know, everything from the 1910s all the way through the 30s, 70s, all the way up until 1971 when the CSA was passed, and the war on drugs. There's racial tension issues. There's, you know, migrant worker past with Harry Anslinger and the Gore files and all the other, you know, history behind it. I think it's you know, I think the stigma has gone away to the extent that it has allowed the market to thrive in certain ways that it otherwise wouldn't have 10, 15 years ago, and especially in very specific jurisdictions like a Tennessee or a Texas, or, you know, some other more conservative states. And what that's done is it's shifted the energy, it's shifted the market that impacts other industries that touches cannabis, because cannabis itself is really more of kind of like an ecosystem that touches so many things. It touches tax, banking, bankruptcy rights, labor, employment, real estate, capital raising, everything, right? And it's certainly changed the face of healthcare and how healthcare has morphed into this industry of not just considering traditional medicines, but now you have certain legislation in California that's been passed, like Ryan's Law, where there's new right to try laws for cancer. Okay, in traditional healthcare, you have physicians who has been historically bound by self-referral laws called the Stark Law. Well, we're starting to see some of that in cannabis too, because now there are certain states that have mandated restrictions on how a physician may or may not have a financial relationship in dispensaries. Well, that's going to impact investments and how money gets shifted around. Anti-kickback issues and how physicians can or cannot promote certain products in their offices. So you're starting to see all these different things that's starting to move. But I also think it's interesting because you see this entire other side of hemp and hemp cannabinoid products, and then you have consumer products. 10 years ago, we didn't see THC or CBD drinks that much, right? But now drinks are everywhere. But even those drinks are starting to evolve and develop. Gummies isn't what it used to be. Lozenges isn't what it used to be. You're seeing the consumer base in this retail space that's very much evolving very quickly, and how they do things in Iowa is very different than Tennessee, and it's different in the East Coast and West Coast. So there's just you have this market is just always changing, and then even just 2-3 years ago, we weren't at 24 adult use states, but we're at 24, 25 now, right? And so.
And that number will keep going. And I think just to add on a little bit, we had the big, you mentioned beverages, the big beverage, from the PepsiCos to Coca-Cola, et cetera. They really haven't originated a product in 35 years, maybe. They have a giant pile of money that they sit on, and they watch to see how the market reacts, and then they'll help pick the winners. And I think we're very much seeing that. You see these huge multinational organizations that are just from their respective markets, from their respective perches, will sit back, make some either very quiet acquisitions or just start stacking the deck towards whatever it is their ultimate goals are. And we're starting to see that again, market by market, as you said, which is honestly fascinating. Like it is very interesting to see. It's not just East Coast versus West Coast, but it's also even within New York and New Jersey, to keep it local over here, different approaches and frankly, very different results. To keep this an apolitical conversation, it's been very interesting to see how that's been executed at both the economic level as well as the political sphere as well.
What else has happened is cannabis has kind of helped. I would say, I don't want to say open the doors, but it's certainly helped facilitate the growth of other doors that are in the alternative substances space, such as psychedelics. Or you're seeing more ketamine clinics open in the last 2-3 years than you ever have. Now it's a Schedule 3. Ketamine is considered a dissociative substance, and now we have kratom, right? And kratom is more of a underlying small player at this time, but it's very jurisdictional based. But we're starting to see a lot of states develop their own consumer kratom protection acts, right? And that has very specific legislation and mandates on how you label, how you market, how you can use it. And so I don't want to say cannabis was, created those doors. They had their own doors, but it's certainly, the market has certainly looked at cannabis and how it was once highly stigmatized, and it's evolved into this industry where it's still growing, and it's received a lot more acceptance in many ways. And so because people were very, as individuals, we're just very habitualistic individuals, we're very routine driven, but we're now seeing cannabis being accepted. So it's like, okay, well, maybe we're open to seeing how psychedelics develop. We're open to seeing how ketamine is. it's all one regulated umbrella, but now you're seeing all these other things pop up. And I think,
well, I also have quite a few psychedelics clients as well, and you're right, it creates a framework, like almost and not just in the legal or compliance sense, but a framework of acceptance, because there's also so much emotion tied to legalizing any of these things. So it's yeah, and I didn't mean to cut you off. It's so fascinating.
I think that's very well said. I think that you're right. I will say that I think cannabis has had more challenges coming in because, quite frankly, psychedelics didn't have some of the Harry Anslinger background, the racial tensions, some of the other migrant workers stuff that cannabis had. Ketamine didn't really have that. I mean, it was developed in the early '60s, and I think we started testing it on animals, and it got to we started using it on Vietnam vets, but again, it didn't have some of the rich history that cannabis had. But nevertheless, it was still a regulated industry that needed social acceptance.
Some people would call this a slippery slope, though. How far are we going to go? What are we going to, approve or, make legal? But, as far as I'm concerned, all the things that you guys have mentioned so far has health benefits and have proven to have health benefits. Is that correct?
You don't have to convince me.
No, I'm just talking about, the people watching, kratom. Are there health benefits to that? Are there to psilocybin? I mean, I know that there are, but some of the people watching, they may not think so.
Well, I think it's I will certainly let the lawyers speak to this very specifically, so I will speak carefully myself here. But not to speak to the health or other potential uses of any of these things, but it does, from a framework, from a research perspective, I follow the research, do your own research. I think having seen plenty of the town halls locally I should say regionally, it's a lot of the arguments are, well, what about the children? What about safety? How do we go about approaching that if we start legalizing? Obviously, first conversation is cannabis, but it evolves from there as well. Safety, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the best way to do that is to legalize and regulate. Like that's absolutely the most direct way to ensure that these things being cannabis and some of the other products we've mentioned, come up with safety standards, come up with what those compliance frameworks look like, come up with what the controls are, and then move from there. That's the most straightforward way to look at this. And the mixed responses on that, but just keeping a logical hat on, that's the most straightforward way that at least I think about it.
I think you can make an argument that it could be a slippery slope, but when they argued against cannabis legalization on the state level, they said it was going to increase crime. It was going to increase addiction. It was going to increase this and that, and all the predictions that's adverse to the efforts to legalize at certain state levels. More or less, they've all been proven to be inaccurate because we found data that didn't support that there was an increase in addiction. We found data that didn't really support that there was an increase in crime or cartel suspicions and this and that. And I say go with the data, one, and then as far as the benefits of the medicinal benefits of these different substances. Listen, I'm just a dumb lawyer, right? And so I'm not a doctor. I'm not a healthcare professional. Actually, I technically, I was once an occupational therapist, but I'm not the person that nor is Zach on this, or really any of us, unless we're trained medical professionals, to say, yeah, kratom's going to provide this type of relief, and it's going to have zero adverse effects, right? We're not, certainly the majority of the public are not in a position to say these are the contraindications of taking this, and this. So I think it is a lot of it about education, and if not self-education, go talk to a medical professional.
I have to agree with you 100% on that. You know, being you are the managing member of Ritter Spencer Cheng PLLC, and you are also an entrepreneur, investor, and you recently touched, well, and you're a podcast host of the Sativa segment, and you recently touched base on hemp and hemp waters. Can you tell us a little bit about your involvement in that?
Yeah, sure. You know, as you said, I practice law for a living, right? And I've been doing it for about 17 years. Really been doing corporate M&A, healthcare, regulatory stuff for about 17 years. About 11 years ago, accidentally fell into the cannabis industry, and then over the years, it's just kind of evolved. As you're evolving and you're meeting people, well, you meet people. And one of the individuals I met along the way, number of years ago, his name is Brian Hart, and I can certainly share his name. He said it was okay. We just developed a relationship. I think he worked as a consultant at the time. He referred me a client. We started working on that project, and then we just developed a relationship. And one day he said, "Hey, listen, I have aspirations to develop a drink company." And I asked him a few questions, and I think what happened was that relationship just developed organically. I gave him some guidance, gave him some tips, and he was serious about it. And next thing you know, I was partnered up with him, and I'm a part owner of his drink company. And I think he's done a wonderful job in identifying a very specific niche market in that our drink Vitam, which only at this point only has one flavor. It's the orange and lemon flavor. He's done an excellent job of identifying a market that identifies with wellness, and so his focus is really going to be the wellness and vitamin approach. It's not so much of a cannabis drink that has cannabinoids in it. It's really a vitamin water first, or a vitamin seltzer that happens to have cannabinoids. So it's called Vitam, and I actually just tasted it recently, and I will say, I swear I'm not saying this just because I have a vested interest. It really actually tastes really good. I would actually drink it regardless of what's in it. Maybe he put too much sugar, and maybe that's not a good wellness way. I don't know, but it is really, really good. And I think that the fact that the taste aspect of it is there, I'm really excited about it. And we're talking to distributors right now, and we just to create our first batch of 500 gallons, and we have productions lined up for substantially more. And so that's the drink that we've developed.
That's amazing. Have you guys gotten your packaging all down and created?
Yeah, I must say it's a good looking can. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm excited. I would love to check it out whenever you guys are ready to show it to the world.
Well, I actually posted some pictures. It was kind of our celebration between the two of us. We met at a cigar bar at a steakhouse, and it was kind of like a cheers. Here's to our new drink. And so you can't actually see the drink on my Facebook page.
Nice. We'll have to check that out. One day will we be seeing you at a Canagar bar?
I don't know. Maybe we'll see, right? But I'm very excited about the drink, and I think I have high hopes for it. And if nothing else, that drink is I think the mission of that drink is actually to create a community. One thing we found is that that Brian and I have talked about many times is I think overall people in America are very lonely people. We feel with technology and everything else, sometimes we can feel very isolated, even though we're more interconnected than ever before. Because we're interconnected by technology, we are separate and isolated in other ways. And so really this drink, one of the main missions of this drink is to bring togetherness and to build a community.
Combat mental health.
Yeah, I mean, I could sit here and make jokes about it, but it actually is not. It's not a joke. It really is. Creating a social circle, creating community does combat mental health issues. It combats depression, combats loneliness, it combats a lot of other, mental conditions that's a contributing factor towards addiction and feeling shame and feeling, a lot of other feelings that we all go through in society.
I love that you guys have a passion and purpose for this. It's really important. Building communities is just the fact that you guys are doing that. It's amazing and it's necessary in order to, promote your product as well and your drink. Are you guys currently looking for investors, capital?
We are. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
We
Where would we
and,
find
and in fact, I will say we very much are.
what kind of partnerships or capital are you guys looking for?
I mean, right now we've bootstrapped the projects, and in order for us to grow, for example, we've produced 500 gallons. We have plenty more to produce, substantially more, but well, what if we land a big distribution arrangement where it needs to be in 500 stores? We don't have enough, right? The only way to make enough is if we have enough capital to make enough. So that's really the type of capital we're looking for, is helping the company grow at a rate that we would want it to grow at.
So you guys are looking for, capital, you're looking for partnerships, distribution channels, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, I would say all of the above will be beneficial, but really capital is really the primary one. But, like anything else, the people with, contacts with capital that also bring other relationships, that brings a value in itself that can't be bought with money.
100%. Are you guys looking to give up equity?
Yes.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. And then, have you talked about it on your sativa segment, your podcast called Sativa Segment?
Yes, go check out episode 19 of the sativa segment. We actually very much talk about that.
Nice. What other things do you guys talk about on Sativa Segment?
Sativa segment was actually created, I want to say August of 22, and it was really created to create a platform that serves the cannabis community on creating educational content. Over the last 11 years, I've served a lot of different types of cannabis related clients, everything from investors to the guy that still lives with mom, but that was able to pull some money together to open up a retail store, right? And everything in between. And what I found is a lot of people who are either looking into this industry, or the ones who are already in it, they lack they sometimes have a lack of understanding of how everything works. Everything from, let's just say, banking, or quickly that when Zach mentioned 280E, there are people who don't know what 280E is. But they're in the cannabis industry. They might have heard of it, but they don't really know it. So I'll get like an accountant on the show to explain 280E and how that impacts COGS and what the type of deductions you can make, and what are some tax liability issues. So it's really creating educational content. And so I've had everything from a doctor to a hospice to former big pharma guys that are now creating certain products to grassroots people. I've had a lobbyist on there. I've had a judge and a criminal attorney on there. I've had a celebrity on there, a local celebrity that is. And so it's just bringing different types of, different perspectives onto the show, that can generate more educational content. And I think, if we educate and benefit the community, it in the long run, I think it benefits everybody.
Agreed. Zach, you're shaking your head.
Oh,
Do you have any comments there?
I'm in agreement. Oh, I did not find a word that was out of place there, nor would I want to argue with a lawyer about that.
The sativa segment can be found not only on your website, but it can also be found on YouTube. And where else can it be found?
I believe it's on YouTube, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker. I think it's on a number of different types of platforms.
Wonderful. I would like to touch base on some of your past and current positions. You are on the board of the Relentless Endeavors. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, sure. The Relentless Endeavors was approached to me by the people who started it, and it's really it's a relatively new endeavor, no pun intended. But it's creating a platform for younger companies to seek initial seed money to present themselves before people who have institutional capital. And really, quite frankly, maybe Vitam Group should be on there, but we're not. So that's what Relentless Endeavors really is that it's an investment platform that's somewhat like an incubator, but not really. And it's still within its first year, to be quite honest.
That's really interesting. You are also on the Texas Cannabis Council, and I'm just kind of curious, what are you guys' conversations? Um, I know you guys talk about hemp, but do you guys think that they're gonna that Texas will eventually legalize marijuana? What are your thoughts with that?
Not with its current administration, no. I do not. In fact, I always say that there's probably a better chance of federal legalization on marijuana than there is in Texas. It's harder. It's pretty difficult to get certain bills passed in Texas with the type of approvals that's needed by the lieutenant governor and the governor. And of course, in Texas, the Congress meets every other year. So on odd years, the Congress is in session. And so a year like 2024 is actually a pretty important year because what you're doing is you're planning for the upcoming year. So most of your work is actually done on even years in preparation for session.
Texas is a conservative state, but you were able to create and teach one of the first cannabis law programs for UNT Dallas College of Law. How did you convince them that this was a necessary program?
I didn't convince them; they came to me. So
Wow.
it was actually pretty easy. Because there wasn't much convincing. I think this is what happened. I'll share a long story, but in an abbreviated fashion. I think one of the students called a firm that I used to be at, and the cannabis chair was contacted, and he said, "Well, Richard is no longer here. In fact, I think you should get in contact with him at his new firm." So I got contacted by a student at UNT, and the student was the president of, I think, the UNT Cannabis, Law Students Association or something like that. And they asked me to come and speak. And it was, I spoke to them for about 45 minutes. It was an after hours presentation at the school. And it wasn't a school endorsed presentation where it was really run by the students, but it went pretty well. And I think after that, a few of students had gone to the administration and said, we need a class like this because we don't have one. And the reason why we need it is because you have this entire industry that's growing, and we want to know more about it, but we don't know anything about it. And this guy that came and talked to us, I think he'd be the perfect guy to come and to teach it. And so, again, it kind of fell in my lap. I didn't lobby it.
Yeah, so it seems that the Texas legislation, the government needs to listen up, pay attention, because people are asking about it, and so it's not going anywhere. I would like to.
Well, I was just saying, just one other point.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, Richard. Have you seen any evolution from since COVID? There's been a lot of people from California and the Northeast, et cetera, moving to Texas. I've had a few friends myself move out that way. Have you seen any evolution in I guess the sentiment? Like, has it Has that change in population caused any effect that you can tangibly see yet, or are we still maybe a couple cycles away from that?
So that's a really good question. Because we do see a lot. Well, first of all, traffic's gotten really bad in Texas in Dallas. So that's first and foremost. I think, Toyota moved out here from Torrance, California to my backyard. I live in Frisco, Texas, and it's literally down the highway from me, about 5 minutes away, the Toyota's headquarters. So they shifted a lot of people into Texas. And so to answer your question is, I think it's in a more subtle way. It's not really in your face, like overnight, oh, Texas is taking this stance. But if you look at like, the political maps, some of the areas that have historically been true red, they're kind of purplish now, if you know what I mean. So, and in some areas where it's kind of like on the fence, where it was already kind of purplish, it's turned more blue. And so some of the political changes, or at least the shifts in the political parties and how people vote, that has an impact on the local level in terms of efforts to decriminalize. And when I say decriminalize, different than legalization.
Right.
And so now in Dallas, and I don't even live in Dallas, so I don't want to misspeak here, but I do believe in Dallas, if you are arrested with under 2 ounces, I think it's just a cite and release, whereas before you were arrested. So I think it's those little subtle changes where you don't see it every day, but it has a huge impact on other people.
Great, thank you. Before we close out, I just want to say thank you for everyone for being here. Richard, the next time you guys, I know your Vitam is going to be huge. The next time you create another drink, you should reach out to Monique. She and her husband does amazing packaging and marketing for the industry. And so definitely, and Monique, that is called InnDica, right? Your company is called InnDica?
It is. Our travel business, travel and hospitality website is called InnDica.com, and it's in with 2 N's. And then our graphic design business is Lazy Turtle Group.
Thank you. Thank you
Awesome.
guys for being here.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up, I would like to, let's start with Zach. Zach, can you please tell our audience where they can reach you at?
Of course. On socials, I'm at Zach Gordan CPA, and I'm Zachary Gordan CPA on LinkedIn. And the website is red5services.com.
Thank you. And Richard?
I'm on X, I'm on LinkedIn. In fact, there's a Sativa segment Instagram account, but my email at Ritter Spencer Cheng, my law firm, is RCHENG, so rcheng at ritterspencer.com. I'm sorry, ritterspencercheng.com.
Thank you. And Monique?
It's Monique at lazyturtlegroup.com, or you can check us out on InnDica.com, and that's INNDICA.com.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. We have 1 minute left. Alan, would you mind wrapping up in prayer?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for everyone for joining us on Crypto Counterverse Show. Let's bow our heads and let's pray. Dear God, thank you so much for another week of a Crypto Counterverse Show, where you can bring like-minded individuals and businesses and founders to come and talk about their business and what their inspiration is. Thank you so much for Richard being here, Zachary and Monique being our co-hosts on today's show. May you continue to instill patience while we wait for the right timing at times to see your blessings, and at the same time, continue to believe and continue to have faith in all things that we do. We believe that you put us together at the right time, right place. We love you, God, and we want to praise you unto the highest high. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. And have a happy Mother's Day weekend.